Chapter 7. The Mask Slips. The command to attend the annual Global Finance Gala was delivered not as an invitation, but as an edict. "You will wear the green dress," Ethan stated, his eyes not leaving the financial reports on his screen. "Marcus will have it for you. You will be silent, you will be beautiful, and you will not leave my side for a single second." The dress, when it arrived, was a masterpiece of dark emerald silk that clung to every curve. It was a warrior queen's gown, designed to be both armor and allure. As I fastened the delicate silver clasp at my nape, I met my own eyes in the mirror. The fiery red of my hair against the deep green of the dress was a striking combination, one he had clearly orchestrated. I was his living, breathing brand, a symbol of his victory over Leo Sterling, paraded for the world to see. Tonight, I wasn't Scarlet, the captive, or Ariel, the escort. I was a possession, and my function was to be exquisitely intimidating. The gala was held in a vast, crystal-draped ballroom that felt like the heart of a glacier. It was a sea of black tuxedos and jewel-tinned gowns, a gathering of the city's apex predators. The air was thick with the scent of money, power, and ambition. Fake smiles were currency, and every handshake was a subtle test of strength. And in the center of it all was Ethan. Here, he was not the silent, brooding captor of the penthouse. He was a different kind of predator altogether. He moved through the crowd with a fluid, lethal grace, his public persona a terrifying thing to behold. He was charming when he needed to be, his smile a sharp, brilliant weapon that disarmed his rivals just before he moved in for the kill. I watched, tethered to his side by the possessive hand on the small of my back, as he verbally dissected a hedge fund manager's portfolio with a surgeon's precision, leaving the man pale and sweating. He cornered a European tech mogul and, in a voice too low for me to hear, brokered a deal that made the other man's eyes widen in a mixture of fear and awe. He was brilliant. He was ruthless. He was the undisputed king of this cold, glittering kingdom, and a part of me, the part that had always been drawn to power, felt a dizzying, unwilling thrill. Then I saw him. Across the room, holding a flute of champagne and looking like a golden god among mortals, was Leo Sterling. He was laughing, captivating a small group with his easy curriva. His eyes met mine over the rim of his glass. The laughter didn't falter, but a serpentine glint of acknowledgement of shared conspiracy passed between us. My blood ran cold. The burner phone, hidden deep within my tiny clutch, suddenly felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. The lie I was living became terrifyingly real. My heart began to hammer a frantic rhythm against the silk of my dress. Ethan's hand on my back tightened instantly. He hadn't looked away from the conversation he was in, but he had felt the subtle shift in my posture, the sudden tension in my body. His head turned slowly, his dark eyes following my gaze until they landed on Leo. The air around us dropped 10 degrees. The charming C.A. Nosk vanished, replaced by the cold, possessive fury I knew so well. "Grief," he commanded in a low growl, his fingers digging into my flesh just enough to be a warning. "He is nothing. Look at me." I forced myself to tear my gaze away from Leo and meet Ethan's. For a moment, in the middle of that glittering ballroom, the rest of the world fell away. There was only his intense, burning focus, a silent, violent promise of what he would do to anyone who tried to take what was his. The rest of the evening passed in a blur. I was a statue at his side, beautiful and silent as commanded, my mind a churning vortex of fear and conflict. The ride home in the limousine was suffocatingly quiet. Ethan stared out the tinted window, the muscles in his jaw working. I expected an explosion, a brutal interrogation about my reaction to seeing Leo. But it never came. He was silent, wrapped in a cloud of exhaustion so profound it seemed to suck the very air from the car. Back in the penthouse, the silence stretched, heavier and more foreboding than any angry words could have been. He loosened his bow tie, pulling it free with a weary sigh. He walked not to his study, but to the vast expanse of window that overlooked the sleeping city, the same window where he had pinned me, where he had branded me with his rage. But tonight, his shoulders were slumped, his posture devoid of its usual predatory power. He looked less like a king surveying his domain and more like a man stranded on a lonely peak. "It's all an illusion," he said, his voice rough, directed at the glass. "All of it. The handshakes, the smiles. They don't see a man, they see a symbol, a vault to be cracked, a rival to be destroyed. My own anger, my own fear, felt small in the face of his stark emptiness. I found myself moving toward him, drawn by a force I didn't understand. "It's like you're painting," I heard myself say, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. "The stormy one, all that power, but it looks so lonely." He turned from the window, and the look on his face struck me harder than any physical blow. The fury was gone. The cold control was gone. In their place was a raw, aching vulnerability that mirrored the desolate sea in the painting. He looked at me as if I were the first person to ever see past the monster, to the man drowning underneath. "That storm," he whispered, his voice cracking almost imperceptibly. "It never really ends." He took a step towards me, then another. I stood my ground, my breath catching in my throat. This wasn't the prelude to a punishment or a claiming. It was something else, something fragile. He stopped just before me, his frame casting me in shadow. For a long moment, he just looked at me, his eyes tracing my features as if memorizing them. Then, slowly, he leaned down and rested his forehead against mine. His eyes closed. I could feel the tremors of his exhaustion, the faint, shuddering breath he took. It wasn't a kiss, it was an abdication, a momentary surrender. In that single, breathtakingly intimate gesture, the mask didn't just slip, it shattered. For the first time since this nightmare began, I wasn't his captive. I wasn't his prize, I was his anchor, the only solid ground in the middle of his endless, raging storm. He pulled back after a moment that felt like both a second and an eternity, his composure already reassembling itself. Without another word, he turned and walked towards his bedroom, leaving me alone in the vast, silent living room. I sank onto the cold leather of the sofa, my body trembling. In my clutch, the burner phone felt like a scorpion, its venom poised to strike. Leo's handsome, smiling face flashed in my mind, his offer of $5 million and a new life. It felt cheap now. It felt like a betrayal of a different kind. How could I be a spy against this man? How could I feed information to his enemy when I had just seen the profound wound at the core of his soul? The mission to escape, to survive, was no longer a simple, clear objective. The lines between captor and captive, monster and man, had blurred into a gray, murky twilight, and I was lost within it, more trapped now by this glimpse of his humanity than I ever was by his rage.